So, good evening once again. A very warm welcome to all of you as we celebrate our Ruby anniversary. It means a lot to me. Looking back at my own journey 20 years back when I joined MARG as an intern and we were celebrating 20th anniversary of the organization and I was clicking photographs, I could not have dreamt that I would be standing here again at 40th. It's like a dream come true. So I feel privileged welcoming all of you today at 40th anniversary. Today it is not just the celebration of 40 years of an organization. It is a celebration of a collective belief that justice belongs to everyone, that legal knowledge and empowerment should not be a privilege of few, but a open, easily available, accessible resource of every citizen of this country. Each citizen should be able to claim the right with full confidence and courage. That's what MARG believes in. Let me share briefly about the program today. First, a ceremonial welcome by our chairperson, Mr. K.K. Rai, followed by a short film on MARG. Our first session will be held by Ms. Maya Daruwala, who will help us recall and reflect. And this will be followed by the most special session of the day when two legends have a conversation and guide us on the way forward. I would also like to share here that Mr. Upendra Baxi would be joining us online due to health reasons. To open this evening of reflection and celebration, we begin with the person who has been the steady hand and the guiding light of MARG, our chairperson, Mr. K.K. Rai. He's a practicing lawyer at Supreme Court. He has a deep compassion for people and a strong belief in justice. Always humble and grounded, he leads by example and inspires everyone around him. Mr. Rai's understanding of law and people has shaped many MARG's initiative on ground. I must say that despite his professional commitments, he's always available for MARG's guidance. He has witnessed MARG's journey very closely and has been a guide for all of us. He's also one who has engaged closely with our founder, late Ms. Vasudha Dhagamwar, and with many of the visionary leaders who shaped MARG's vision. It is this combination of warmth and commitment that continues to inspire us today. Please join me in welcoming Rai Saab, our chairperson, to share the spirit of this celebration and his reflection on MARG's journey over the last 4 decades.
I welcome you all to this 40 years of MARG's celebration. Celebration is not only an opportunity to relish what we have done, it is also an opportunity for us to contemplate on our future vision and where we have missed and what could be done further. So, this is an opportunity for all of us who have been associated with MARG for so many years to put our heads together, to think about the achievements, our failures, the gaps, and the vision for future. This is how I look at celebration. As the name suggests, it is essentially a research group, multiple action research group, that has blended its research with multiple actions to achieve its goal of legal empowerment of the marginalized segments of the society. The Memorandum of Association speaks of action-oriented research in the problems affecting the deprived and disadvantaged groups. MARG in Hindi stands for path. Path is indicative of constant movement and a journey towards fulfillment. So this is our journey that had started 40 years ago and that would continue in future as well. Dr. Vasudha founded the organization in 1985. The plight of villagers she had witnessed during her social work at Akkalkuwa, Maharashtra, which was a tribal taluka, where they were facing submergence due to construction of Sardar Sarovar Dam, drove her to lay the foundation of MARG with 3 core programs, and those programs were displacement and rehabilitation, legal literacy, women and children. Unlike Narmada Bachao Andolan that advocated no dam, MARG addressed fundamental issues of rehabilitation of the oustis and the state's primary role in ensuring proper rehabilitation arising out of displacement, thereby guaranteeing right to life. Here, the approach was a little different because rather than opposing the construction of dams itself, she addressed herself to the plight of the people around, how they have to be rehabilitated, and rehabilitation involves a lot of activities because it is not only economic rehabilitation of the people who have been ousted from the areas, it's also the cultural rehabilitation, professional rehabilitation. So a lot of activities surround the rehabilitation aspect of displaced people, and she addressed those issues rather than just saying no dam, because no dam slogan is a catchy slogan, so we get attracted to that. And when you get into the fundamentals of the issues, those issues may not be very attractive to people around, but those issues are so constructive in nature that helps people to rehabilitate, that helps people to grow in future, despite the fact that they have suffered setback in the past. See, apart from publishing various research papers on the subject, a film was made in 1989 titled Baste Ujadte Kaal Ke Talash Mein. It called for a national policy on rehabilitation. Similar studies were carried out in Korba, Madhya Pradesh, Hazaribagh, that was in Jharkhand, erstwhile Bihar, Mumbai and Pune in Maharashtra, Shahpur Jat in Delhi, and Raipur in Chhattisgarh. These were the areas where displacement had taken place for various reasons. Because of urbanization also leads to displacement. The colonization also leads to displacement. Industrialization also leads to displacement. So various activities which may sound progressive in the larger context do affect certain people who are being displaced around. And those issues were tackled by MARG. MARG also helped in developing curriculum for IGNOU for a diploma course on resettlement and rehabilitation. IGNOU has wider reach out to the people of the deprived segment because this is informal education that is imparted to the people around. So MARG associated itself with IGNOU, developed a curriculum where the people are made aware of how the rehabilitation has to take place and other things, and this is what it did. Then the second aspect that the MARG undertook was of legal literacy. Legal literacy is a step towards empowerment. Making law comprehensible to a commoner is in making it effective. Unfortunately, complexity of law leads to exploitation of the people at the bottom. I am reminded of a book that I had read a decade ago that was by David Panic, and the name of the book was Judges, where he was advising the English judges and the lawyers that they should speak in a language that is comprehensible to the commoners, and the judges should write judgment in a language that could be understood by the common people. So I was just wondering, the Britishers had difficulty in understanding the English language, how difficult it is for all of us in India to understand what is happening in the courts. That is also indicative of the fact that we should have the proceedings as much as possible in regional languages, which are being understood by the commoners. And also by simplifying the law, you make it more friendly with the people who are to be governed by law. I'm supposed to be governed by law and I don't know what the law is, because the law is so complex to be understood by between the judges and the lawyers, that the commoner thinks what is happening around, something strange is happening, which is affecting us on day-to-day basis. So MARG addressed itself to simplify law, and for that reason, it led to publication of Hamare Kanun, Hamare Maulik Adhikar, and also we made a film named Bol Basanto. And all these steps led to simplification of law. That activity is still being carried on by us. We are revising our laws. We are getting help from our former ED. And I think the book would be, I think another 2-3 months we'll be able to get it. Abha is here and she would be helping us out further in that endeavor. Then we are also associating ourselves with the legal aid bodies all over wherever we are working, legal aid bodies of the government, and we are assisting them in ensuring that it becomes legal, it becomes reachable to the commoners. We are also holding seminars and discussions and workshops wherever it is possible. The one experiment that we have been making for the last 2-3 years is of linking legal empowerment with government-sponsored projects launched for the welfare of rural masses. The projects have the legal backing because projects have been created for the people who are at the bottom of the society. The very fact that the schemes have been launched by the government would show that they have legal sanctions, statutory sanctions, proper understanding of those projects, making them understandable to the commoners, would empower them to access those projects for their economic growth. The mere knowledge of law would not be sufficient for legal empowerment. We all know about our fundamental rights. We may be knowing about several other statutory rights. But when it comes to enforcement, most of us are fearful of either going to the police station or going to the court of law for various factors which come into play. So therefore, that is one area where if we are able to legally empower the people as well, then we are also, the empowerment would flow from the economic empowerment. So therefore, a combination of two would work towards the growth of the society which we are aiming at. As law professionals, we mostly concentrate on litigation without realizing its potential to influence the society in different ways by empowering the marginalized segment of the society. This has been indeed an enriching experience for me, because the application of law to the society at large is missing when it comes to litigation. Litigation only, we settle our disputes when we go to the court. But is law only meant for settling the disputes, or is it beyond that? It regulates our day-to-day life. It regulates our economic activities. It regulates our social activities. So therefore, if there is mass awareness about law, it would also lead to mass empowerment. And that is what the basic thrust of the MARG activities are today. So these are the things we have been doing in nutshell, and we'll continue to work towards the achievement of these goals. And I would suggest I would request suggestions from the August gathering where we can incorporate those suggestions and act towards those suggestions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. K.K. Rai, for taking us through the entire journey of MARG and guiding us and also reinforcing the importance of legal awareness. Now let's take a few minutes to experience MARG's journey, not through data or reports, but through the voices of those whose lives it has touched. This short film captures 4 decades of passion and purpose, from the early days of legal literacy to the growing movement for justice that continues in our communities these days. Let's dim the light and watch the film, The Journey of Legal Empowerment and Access to Justice.
Law is a constantly evolving aspect of democracy.
The hierarchies that exist in our society transmit itself to the legal system. People who are subjected to violence, marginalization, oppression, how do they use the law? What is the kind of access to law that they seek? MARG was an institution that was built on those understandings.
Requirement of an organization like MARG would always be there.
The intensive work that MARG has done is unparalleled.
All the grandeur of the law, that I started experiencing in being associated with MARG.
MARG was the first place that allowed me to explore my sense of justice.
Late 80s, I would say, it was a very interesting phase for the country. We were just entering, I think, into the new age of infrastructure development. They started building dams.
What happens, suppose for creating a dam or for creating a project, you acquire land.
Submergent area बोलते हैं उसको. उनको वहाँ से लोगों को हटना पड़ेगा.
Their social rehabilitation, cultural rehabilitation would be an issue. The people who are affected have to be rehabilitated.
One of the key areas of work was working with people who are displaced by development projects.
Dr. Vasudha Dhagamwar went first to the Narmada Valley. So Vasudha was a socio-legal researcher.
Vasudha proposed work on displacement.
Myself, Vasudha, and one more, Usha Vaidyanathan. We collected information from more than 18 villages in Madhya Pradesh.
The whole thing was to get to know a problem that had not surfaced very much in our minds. What's happening here? What is going? How many people are being affected? What is the government promising them? What does the law say? So we decided to go into that field of telling the people what their rights were. We did a very good booklet on Land Acquisition Act. People are routinely coming to buy that booklet. Lawyers are buying it in Delhi because they found the act too difficult to understand.
It really became a landmark publication in those times.
उसी दौरान एक famous एक मथुरा rape case हुआ था. Mathura was the name of a girl. She was gang raped in a police station. Supreme Court gave a very objectionable judgment in that. उसकी बात कैसे मान सकते हैं, you know. That is when Dr. Upendra, Baxi, Vasudha, they wrote a letter to the Supreme Court saying, please revisit your decision.
She and Professor Upendra Baxi and Latika Sarkar shaped the whole thinking around rape law, and that is what changed the rape law in this country.
That was around the same time that she set up MARG.
It was called the Multiple Action Research Group. So it was always joined to this idea that research must lead to action.
We had our first office in Shahpur.
I found the environment very fascinating.
It was a space for young people to come together, dream together.
Intellectually, it was always a spark.
Slowly, many more people joined. We started working on women and children also. And that's where Hamare Kanun came in.
Hamare Kanun is the law simplified for the commoners, common issues, the family law, marriage, divorce, like that.
We really worked on the design. It should be readable, it should be understandable.
Hamare Kanun has played a very, very important role in looking at legal reform.
शुरू में जब मैं मीटिंग में जाने लगी थी तो इतना नहीं हमारी समझ में आता था संविधान के बारे में, जैसे हम स्कूल के टाइम में पढ़ते तो थे लेकिन जब हमने अब दोबारा उठाई ये किताब संविधान क्या है, हमारे अधिकार क्या हैं, तो धीरे धीरे हमारी समझ में आने लगे कि हमारे क्या अधिकार हैं।
सरकार द्वारा महिलाओं के लिए, बच्चों के लिए, जो अनुसूचित जाति संबंध रखते उनके लिए, बीपीएल कार्ड परिवारों के लिए जो स्कीम चलाई जा रही है उसके ऊपर इसमें जानकारी दी गई है। ठीक है, इसको आपने यहाँ पर आकर एक नाटक के रूप में प्रस्तुत करना है।
पहले तो जानकारी सिर्फ कुछ हद तक थी, लेकिन अब हमारी जानकारी का दायरा बढ़ने लग रहा है और भी बढ़ाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। अन्याय सहना और कुछ न कहना।
Bol Basanto was like a soap opera.
They were audio films simplifying laws for rural and illiterate women.
Basanto was this woman who would go and give information to women about their legal rights.
तलाशी तो सिर्फ महिला पुलिस ले सकती है, आपकी नाक के नीचे गैर कानूनी काम।
The idea was to make it light and enjoyable.
कानून होते हैं समाज के नियम, और जितने भी नियम होते हैं ना उनके अलग अलग नाम रख देते हैं।
Bol Basanto of course became a runaway success.
It was so popular and so lokpriya on the local channel and used in these small localities.
मतलब इस फिल्म के द्वारा ये बताना चाह रहे हैं कि जो कानून है वो सबको समान रूप से न्याय दिलवाता है, चाहे वो छोटा है, चाहे वो बड़ा है, चाहे वो गरीब है।
कि हमने बोल बसंतो फिल्म देखी और कानून किताब पढ़ी, उसमें है कि जो पहले 18 वर्ष से कम उम्र में नाबालग में शादी किया जाता था, अब है कि उस पर कानूनी अपराध है। समानता का अधिकार है, समता का अधिकार है, जितने भी हमारे मौलिक अधिकार है उसके बारे में मुझे नहीं पता था। ये मार्ग संस्था के द्वारा ही हमें पता चला है।
MARG was working largely on issues of legal awareness and had some of the best publications. We updated many of the Hamare Kanun, and some new aspects of law which were not in the earlier publications were brought in. The domestic violence law had been enacted in 2005. So we brought out a handbook. It gave you the latest judgments, it simplified the law, it told you how to access this law. I think one of my fondest memories of MARG is the young people I worked with. I appointed Noor Alam, he had applied.
उन दिनों में जब मैंने मार्ग ज्वाइन किया था, हम लोग लीगल अवेयरनेस और लीगल रिसर्च करते थे और प्राइमरीली लीगल अवेयरनेस वर्कशॉप्स काफ़ी ऑर्गेनाइज करते थे, लीगल लिटरेसी मटेरियल बनाया करते थे, और जो बाद में भी बनता रहा, मार्ग का वो पोर्टल कंटिन्यू रहा। ऑल्दो जब सावदा घेवड़ा का काम चल रहा था, एक स्लम रिसेटलमेंट कॉलोनी है दिल्ली में, सावदा घेवड़ा स्लम रिसेटलमेंट कॉलोनी। उन दिनों आप देखते हैं कि दिल्ली में कॉमनवेल्थ गेम होने वाला है, तो गवर्नमेंट दिल्ली के कई लोगों को उठा के रिलोकेट किया।
जब हम यहाँ आए तो हमारे प्लॉट इधर उधर कटे हुए थे, किसी को पता नहीं था कि हमारा प्लॉट कहाँ पर है, किस जगह पर है। सबसे पहले हम लोग कॉलोनी में आए तो यहाँ पानी की सबसे ज़्यादा समस्या थी।
पानी वहाँ बहुत खा रहा था ज़मीन का, और इतने पैसे नहीं है कि वो बोरवेल करा के पानी निकलवा ले, फिर टैंकर से पानी आएगा वहाँ पे। हमारे वर्कशॉप्स के दौरान अचानक से लोग उठ के भागना शुरू हो जाते थे। महिलाओं का कहना होता था भैया पानी नहीं होगा घर में ना, तो बड़े झगड़े होते हैं।
पानी की समस्या के लिए हमने आरटीआई डाली थी। मार्ग ने हमारे साथ काफी समय तक इसके लिए लगातार प्रयास किया।
हमने ये करा कि वो आरटीआई जो है कम्युनिटी के महिलाओं के माध्यम से लगवाए। तो आज वहाँ किसी महिला से बात करें, वहाँ पे वो कहती है भैया हमने आरटीआई लगाया है, वो अपने ऑनरशिप लेती है।
पता चला कि यहाँ पे मीटिंग लेते हैं मार्ग वाले, तो हमें उसके साथ हम फिर जुड़े उनके साथ। तो उन्होंने हमें बताया कि कैसे कैसे यहाँ पानी आएगा, तो हमने आईटीआई लगाई। उन्होंने हम समझाया था मार्ग वालों ने कि ऐसे ऐसे करना है।
And that was the fantastic moment I wanted to share.
I was very happy to hear when Noor became the executive director, because I think that speaks volumes about MARG.
ऐसे बहुत सारे स्टोरीज हैं। मनोज कुमार पहले कम्युनिकेशन असिस्टेंट हुआ करते थे, फिर वो कैसे ग्रो करते हैं, फिर एक इंस्टीट्यूशन का आज एडमिन ऑफिसर हैं। कई सारे ऐसे लोग रहे हैं जो मार्ग में इंटर्नशिप करके जॉब पे आए।
मेरा जुड़ाव 2005 में हुआ, जब मैं खुद एक लॉ स्टूडेंट था। उस समय स्ट्रेंथन एक्सेस टू जस्टिस इन इंडिया एक जुडिशियल रिफॉर्म का प्रोग्राम चल रहा था, जिसमें मार्ग के साथ हम भी काम कर रहे थे। साथ ही साथ जेल रिफॉर्म के कई सारे कार्य हमने दिल्ली, मध्य प्रदेश और छत्तीसगढ़ में किए।
I did internship with MARG in the month of January 2012. I really enjoyed the vision and work of MARG. As a result, I joined the organization.
दिल्ली लीगल सर्विस अथॉरिटी के सबसे पहले दिल्ली के पैरा लीगल वॉलंटियर बैच के रूप में शुरुआत हुई थी हमारी, और हमें वहाँ जो सीडी के माध्यम से जो मार्ग का प्रशिक्षण का मॉड्यूल है उसे जान के पढ़ के समुदाय में आज भी मैं उस प्रशिक्षण के तहत जो चीज़ें हमें और जो जानकारियाँ हमें मिली कानूनी जागरूकता के संबंध में हम सतत कार्य कर रहे हैं।
एक बेस्ट एग्जांपल मैं सना का देना चाहूँगा। सना herself started as an intern here.
Recently, I've joined MARG as executive director. Way back in 2004, I was very young, just out of college. I came here to volunteer, but then stayed for almost 3-4 years. Even at that time, it was a lively place, full of young people, lot of interns here. Initial work जो मैंने किया, that was mostly on labor laws and women's rights. I was working in jails in MP. Lot of juveniles were there in the jails at that time. We would list them down. We would ask how many juveniles are there, how many murder cases are there, how many of you have lawyers, do you know that you can get a lawyer for free from the state. The entire procedure for the trial would change because of the identification of their age and doing the proper calculation. The parents were so grateful. सिर्फ एक application की वजह से वो बच गया. If they would have remained in that prison, it would have been different journey, different life for them. Law as a tool cannot be a privilege for few people in the society. It should be a public resource, accessible and available to everyone.
आम धारणा होती है कि कानून मतलब कोर्ट कचहरी, थाना, पुलिस.
Even as lawyer, I'll be reluctant to go to a police station because of the hostile atmosphere normally one finds.
हमारे देश में कम से कम 10 से 12 हज़ार लॉज हैं और हर इंसान को वो समझना है.
We are trained to be good lawyers, we are trained to be good doctors, engineers, but we are not trained to be good citizens. MARG is taking the law to the citizens of the country.
And once they know the law, they can go and get a remedy from the law.
Going forward, we plan, so MARG has to develop the change makers. MARG has to create a cadre of community justice workers, revamping our capacity building modules and making it more engaging, experiential, immersive. That is the idea going forward. It's a 24/7 responsibility. If we really believe that as humans we have dignity and it needs to be secured, we have to continue. It is difficult, it is full of challenges, but we have to keep on going.
I really liked it. I'm sure all of you also enjoyed it. Every frame reminded us that MARG's story is really about the people for whom we work. But I must tell you that I really enjoyed the journey of making of this film, talking to so many people, going through old photographs, videos, reconnecting, listening to the stories that were never shared before. I'm thankful to Moin and his entire team from Pine Tree for putting everything together. This next segment takes us from memory to meaning. I'll begin by sharing a quick snapshot of where we are today as MARG, how our work continues to evolve in the areas of access to justice, gender equality, and community empowerment. As we look back 40 years of journey, it's equally important to look at where we stand today. How that founding vision of making justice accessible to all still continues to shape our everyday action. At its heart, MARG work has always been about translating the law into the language of people's life, making it simple, relevant, and actionable. That spirit continues even today across multiple fronts. Currently, we are working with communities in rural India, mostly Haryana, Bihar, and Uttar Pradesh, to strengthen people's understanding of their rights and entitlements. Through our network of community justice workers, many of them women and youth, we help people in their issues mostly related to violence, women's rights, child rights, issues related to marginalized Dalits, etc., provide support in accessing government schemes, resolve local civic issues, and approach authorities with confidence. Our work with women and children remains a cornerstone. Through different initiatives, MARG continues to strengthen capacity building of right holders, sensitize the duty bearers, and strengthen the system that is meant to protect the rights of people. We also deeply engage in capacity building of police, panchayat, protection officers, and many other such stakeholders. We continue to reinforce that we should not see law as a distant structure, but as a tool for equity and inclusion. We are closely working with District Legal Services Authority. At the same time, we have expanded our focus to livelihood, as was mentioned by Rai Saab as well. Because during our journey, we have realized that without any food on the plate, it is difficult to continue and sustain the fight for dignity and freedom and justice. Our legal research and advocacy work continues to inform the policy debate. In short, while the issues we work on have evolved, our essence remains the same: to bridge the distance between what is on ground and what should be the reality. As we celebrate 40 years, we also carry forward a quiet but firm commitment to keep reimagining the access to justice, reimagining the meaning of access to justice in today's India, and to keep walking with the people who remind us every day why justice matters. It is now my honor to invite Ms. Maya Darwala, one of the most respected voices on human rights and legal reforms, and someone who has known our founder, Ms. Vasudha Dagamwar, and MARG's journey intimately. She is also a former chairperson. She will first share her reflection on Vasudha-ji, on MARG's beginning, on our journey, values that we still sustain and hold. And later, she will open the floor for discussion, where we invite all of you to share your thoughts, reflections, and guide us further. I invite Ms. Maya Darwala.
Thank you, Sana. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Justice Muralidhar. I hope I haven't missed anybody in the room. We've had, I'm glad, Sana, that you talked about the learning or the remembrances, how they brought, how they gave you the opportunity to talk about things that perhaps were long forgotten. And indeed, this invitation to speak a little bit about Vasudha and MARG actually also reminded me so much of a past that honestly just lay half forgotten with me, but the memory of it and seeing all of you here, many of whom I know a little bit more and some a little bit less, really enriched my present life, just to remember all of that. So since it's been 40 years, and also for MARG, and Vasudha is no more with us, I suppose I could make this into a eulogy for Vasudha, but indeed I won't, because it's more of an appreciation of my friend. I could make this very personal, but I really don't want to, just to give you a keyhole idea of this person and of my friendship with her. When I came to Delhi in long, long ago, in 1986. She was already an established person with an established track record in human rights, and MARG was already well established as well. And the two of us could not have been more different people. The way she walked, the way she talked, the clothes she wore were for me a great joy, because I could laugh at them all the time. She never wore a blouse that matched a skirt or a sari. Her slippers were awful. She wore no jewelry. And I can't say I was a contrast to her, but she used to tell me, Maya, if you dress like this, I can't take you anywhere. Because we were always in some government office or some sort of semi-village setting. And she taught me a great deal about how to communicate with people who were very different from me, because I had come away from being out of the country for a long time. But enough about that. I want to tell you a little bit of this keyhole bit that I know about Vasudha. It amazed me that she had a PhD when I, as a barrister, had got no education at all until way after I was married. I had come from a very privileged background where I had lived in cities and had the opportunity to have some of the best education in the country, and yet had got married after class 10. And she had gone from Dhanbad, which was a coal town, where her father was a labor organizer of some reputation, and her mother, Miss Sane, was not only a writer, prolific writer of children's stories, very, I won't say moralistic children's stories, but children's stories that were deeply ethical, and was also a known translator. And so Vasudha had the benefit of 2 or 3 cultures, Andhra, Marathi, and from this background, she and her sister was a doctor, she was a PhD from Oxford, which absolutely stunned me. And then she had also the education, the academia and all of those things that you get at Oxford translated into a choice to work with people who were the most vulnerable. And to come back with an understanding that while there was this huge infrastructure and this umbrella of rule of law and all of the mechanisms that go with that, to recognize the powerlessness and understanding where to make that intervention. So academics, research, action, and the ability to move comfortably. She was quite irascible, let me tell you. But that was out of her own higher thinking, if you like, not being able to tolerate too much fools. How she tolerated me, I don't know. But we got on. But by the time, it also helped in her company, and that is, I'm sharing with you because you were in her company, her contribution was in opening your mind to debate on the Uniform Civil Code, on rape, on women, on under trials. That story of under trials that we now skim over began with her finding 4 young boys, probably underage, young Pahadia boys, in some obscure jail, writing to the Chief Justice and getting the whole, there must have been attempts before and have been attempts later, and there's a whole jurisprudence now around it. But at that moment, to take it from there, from that obscure jail, to the Supreme Court, and have a series of orders then that expanded what it meant to be an under trial. So, I just want to emphasize that what we do, the stone that we throw in a still pond, has so many ripples that we ourselves are unable to document them. But one of the things I do want to say to you, Sana, is that in situ, in your office in MARG, you have an archive of huge but undiscovered learning, which will show you why we are here today. I would be less than human if I did not say what I contributed in some small way to MARG, besides being a pretty hopeless chair. I was at that time at Ford Foundation, and today it is all the fashion to decry foreign contributions, and we were all wicked people and so on. But I did support MARG for many years, and especially to produce Bol Basanto, which I am very proud of. And the author of it is here. Please stand up, madam, and show yourself. And I just love the way that it was done. And of course, Hamare Kanun, for which I also wrote one of the books, which Abha very politely told me was really not as good as it should be, and edited down. But whatever it is, I am delighted to have had the company. So now you know why MARG is called the Multiple Action Research Group. In many ways, it is just a personification of Vasudha, where she came from, what her journey was, where she was trying to be. So that is also her legacy. We don't need to be weighed down by it, but rather be uplifted by it. So now I stop and say, you will see 3 questions. I hope we will see them. We will see 3 questions on board over here. But before I go there, I want to say one more sentence, and that is that the environment that existed in the 80s is no longer the environment that we live in today. There is an undoubted shrinkage of space, undoubted intolerance of many things, including the participation of people in their own governance. And these are not things that we had to contend with. Sure, there was resistance of all kinds, but not to the extent that you have exclusion from almost all parts of governance. But we also have very good company here. We also have, despite the shrinkage of space and the loss of trust within the system, we also have technology, the ability for mass communication. Vasudha believed in the people's movements, and the people's movements being able to change systems. If that was the vision, then these questions are very relevant. And my question to the hall would be this. You have got the inheritance. You have got the desire. You have got the intention. You have got the learning. You have got the privilege. Now, what is it that you want to do that will massify and multiply the knowledge that you have and get it imparted to people who are still waiting to know what rule of law is, what access to justice is, what being empowered is? So here are the questions. What has worked so far and what hasn't? What lessons can be drawn? What is MARG's relevance today and the core work that MARG is focused on in imparting legal knowledge to communities? What should be the way forward? So if you have intensely practical notions, which MARG can take away from here, it will be a huge contribution for 5, 10, 15 people who, like Munna, buy Lagueros all the time. So may I invite the audience to take the mic and tell me to shut up and give us ideas. Sana, do we have a mic going around, or do I go around, or what is it?
My name's Vinita and I work with We the People Abhiyan, Maya.
Hi.
And yeah, and practical idea really is taking off from Bol Basanto, which we use a lot. And also, you know, Hamare Adhikar, we've been using the books a lot. I think that translating the law into simple films is really something that we hope MARG can do more of. We've been using them, but then there's so much more that can go around. And now the way you mentioned technology, to being, you know, to make it available in forms that are easily disseminable through WhatsApp, that's really what we would love for MARG to do, and it would help us immensely.
Thank you so much. That is a hugely appealing idea. Yeah. Thank you. And it's not that difficult to do.
And completely MARG would be the forerunner in doing that. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, the gentleman in the blue shirt.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. This is Rajesh Devli. I think the most relevant thing will be like understanding of people in the rural area about cyberspace, and because generally it's very obvious nowadays, like people are using mobile but they're not looking into the technical things there. So duty of the MARG organization to empower them regarding cyberspace and what are their rights and duties there, and especially now we have a Data Protection Act also there, and more to come, I'm sure. So especially AI, etc. So I think this is very important, and understanding of authentic information and unauthentic information, and also where to go about it, like who are the authorities. I think this is the most important, because people are using mobile or computers, but they have no understanding of the cyberspace and its nuances. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think they would pick it up if they found it relevant, and one of the places where they can find it relevant is when you're being scammed. Yeah? But if you don't have too much money, then people don't scam you. But I take your point. Thank you. Ma'am.
I think 40 years. 40 years, so I think Sana mentioned something about memory to meaning. So it would be nice if some of the people who have worked rose and spoke.
Sure. Did you have a suggestion? I mean, besides that one.
I mean, I wouldn't like to take name. Maybe Abha should speak. We've spoken about her work so much. So recall, we have Noor, we have others who have worked.
Abha, what would you like to say on how to build on your work? You are still associated with MARG, you've been the ED of MARG, and a great inspiration. So please do say.
Okay.
And she has the best 2 boys in the world.
So Maya and I have a long history of her going in before me and saying all the things that I intended to say. So, I mean, thanks Maya, that was really, you know, a journey with Vasudha, and, you know, there's a strong presence, I think, that we're feeling. What has worked so far, you already said it. very nicely that, everything that, and it was so fundamental, in the field of sociology and law, I think, and governance and rule of law and all of that, whatever Vasudha started and what happened over the last 40 years was so fundamental that I think, every little bit one can draw upon that. And, the presence of many people here, Maya herself, Kameshwar, Mr. V.N. Rai, Mridula, Amitabh, Nikhil, I mean, there are, Preeti, there are so many people over here, Kiran Jyoti. All of us have experienced, somebody made a group, in fact, he was one of the interns, and he's never really worked with MARG, and he put together a group, WhatsApp group for MARG, and everybody's been talking nothing but, about the connect that. So I think that as a context, that MARG in today's context, I think we can, heavily draw upon that and pick up the threads, because we've all been on that journey. That journey is, a lot of it has stayed with us. So it is so fundamental that I think it just continues to be relevant in whatever context you put it in. And I would say to Sana and the MARG team and the governance that reaching out to all of that, the people who have traveled that journey and who are actually here today, I think that would be a very, very good idea for MARG to do, So while you talk about the fundamentals, then of course legal knowledge is my own personal, bug. So it should continue, and all the, like Vinita has given the given one this thing, we can definitely MARG can come. I'm sorry, I'm still in the V. MARG की बात होती है तो हम सभी लोग वी से ही बात कर रहे हैं. कुछ दिन से जब भी बात हो रही है सबकी आपस में, तो अभी वी वाला वही हो रहा है. So that's the kind of connect, and that what should be the way forward to achieve the greatest impact? I think from the most basic, we talk about technology, but again and again, what I have felt, and I've been doing that ever since Vasudha kind of, threw us all in at the deep end. And I also threw other people in at the deep end, ki hum to doobenge sanam, but you enjoy, come enjoy, let's enjoy the swim and the boat ride together. So what I feel is, and it may sound a little regressive in the age of technology, that the most fundamental methodology of directly talking to people, and these pictures that you see, we have hundreds more. Because by now, I think MARG would have done a few thousand, if not more, of these interactions face to face. And I would definitely say that, please continue to do that. That interface, there is no substitute for that. And as far as I know, there is no other organization talking about law and the rule of law and governance issues at the grassroots the way MARG talks till today. So please do keep that, of course, do technology, use of technology and all of that. So thank you. I mean, I have always have lots to say. Sana and Maya.
Thank you. Thank you, Abha. So if I may attempt to sort of add a gloss to what you're saying, is that there is technology, but it's vital to keep in touch with the grassroots for those people who are trying to implement the things that you're talking about, and that the workshops, the constant workshops, disseminate, help disseminate, but also help to ground what is then translated into technology. But both of them can actually go quite hand in hand. You don't have to lose one with the other. Sir, yourself.
Hello, my name is Abhitav. I'm sorry I'm carrying a sore throat, and that's not Delhi, that's Bombay. So I was in MARG from 1997. I got fed up of practicing in the courts because nobody was paying me any money. So I thought, okay, I'll take a sabbatical and start working with Vasudha. 1 year I was there, and thereafter I changed the stream, and then I got into the World Bank's ADBs, and finally I'm now a partner with Jay Sagar. Very important point. What is
you
relevance?
have enough so that we can scam you.
Sorry? I think one point about the MARG's relevance today's context, I've spent like last 20 odd years working with firms like J. Sagar Associates. I'm still with them now, with the Ketan and Company, the senior partner. What is relevance? Even law is not that very well known to people who actually understand the language, who understand the economics, who understand the commerce. So my training of MARG has really helped me to be very passionate and very, very, so to speak, grassroots level of knowledge to bring on the corporate law side. Now, what is relevance? And I think, where MARG should definitely focus on, I'm sure they are, but what should be the core objective? We talk about access to fundamental rights. We talk about access to justice. But even our kids, my two daughters, they don't know that I've gone through the school, I've gone across the country teaching legal literacy. Most relevant is to access to justice. Most relevant is literacy. I'm not talking about the language literacy, be that English or Hindi or any other language. Rao Sahib is there, we speak Bhojpuri, our common mother tongue. But I think unless or until we make people aware of what exactly laws are and how they're relevant are, I don't think we'll be doing justice to the legacy of Vasudha, the legacy of MARG, which should be taught in each and every school. Wherever people like I or anybody can help, we'll be more than happy, and it'll be our privilege and honor to take that across to the common folks in this country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amitabh. Again, there is, I see, I'm adding, because I know what Sana is struggling with, and we have been talking. One of the things is the debate in MARG is often about pure legal literacy, merely imparting what the law is, or legal awareness and empowerment, which is much more than you go to things like how do you help this person to get to court, to get a remedy, and one can get very, very involved with that. So the struggle and the conversation very often comes around that. But I think to get out of it, to sort of unravel the threads of it, perhaps the best thing is to decide on what your focus is going to be. Is it going to be legal literacy and dissemination and spread? And then have the ability to make referrals to anywhere, to have a cohort of people who can then take the legal empowerment side of it forward, so that you don't get involved with or lost in the minutiae. Sir ji, आप नहीं बोलेंगे तो कौन बोलेगा?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. और मैं तो 2-3 चीज़ें मेरी लगी कि जो काम किया, और लीगल लिटरेसी विशेष रूप से जो ऑडियो विजुअल पार्ट था हमारा, जैसे जो फिल्म है बोल बसंतो, तो मैंने जो महसूस किया और वो ज़रूरत है उसको अपडेट करने की, ख़ास करके इन दिनों में जब अभी नए लॉज आ गए, BNS वगैरह आ गया, तो जैसे हम लोग हमारे कानून को ऑलरेडी कर रहे हैं अपडेट, तो मुझे लगता है कि एक तो वो किया जाए, और उसमें आप सभी लोगों की सपोर्ट की ज़रूरत पड़ेगी। बगैर मेरे ख्याल से फंडिंग के भूखे पेट भजन ना हो गोपाला, तो ये बहुत ज़रूरत होगा। और मुझे लगता है कि जो मासेस का कॉमन जो हम लोग एक्टिव सिटीजनरी एजुकेशन का प्रोग्राम चला रहे हैं, दैट शुड बी कंटिन्यूड ऑन, और उसको वो बहुत काम करता है। जैसे RTI के बारे में अभी बात करना थोड़ा सा डिफ़िकल्ट हो जाता है जैसा कि लगता है लोगों को, लेकिन अभी भी बहुत सारे स्पेस बचे हुए हैं जहाँ पे हम काम कर सकते हैं RTI का सटीक इस्तेमाल करके, रैदर देन किसी एक इंडिविजुअल केसेस में स्कैमिंग नज़रिए से सोचे बिना हम उसको गवर्नेंस के कॉन्टेक्स्ट से सोच सकते हैं। हमारे कई कॉलीग यहाँ पे दिख रहे हैं, प्रियंका हैं, अमृता हैं, ये लोग टेस्टमनी हैं जिससे हम लोगों ने कम्युनिटी में कैसे इस्तेमाल किया लॉ को, जो आप लोगों ने देखा भी। तो मुझे लगता है कि इसको कंटिन्यू किया जाना चाहिए, और उसके लिए फिर अगेन के भजन के लिए थोड़ा फंड चाहिए, तो उसको सपोर्ट किया जाए। और मुझे लगता है कि वी आर रियली आई थिंक फ्रॉम एज यू सेड राइटली आपा मैम, कि फ्रॉम लास्ट फ्यू डेज मेरे ख्याल से 2 महीने से हम लोग जो बात कर रहे हैं, जो एनर्जी सब में आ रही है आपस में, तो मुझे लगता है कि इस मोमेंटम को और कंटिन्यू कीजिए अगले 40 साल तक। हम में से बहुत लोग रहेंगे, बहुत से लोग नहीं भी रहेंगे। वी शुड कंटिन्यू दैट मोमेंटम एंड आई थिंक यही हमारी रिलेवेंस है, जो जस्टिस थ्रू लीगल एम्पावरमेंट, मास लिटरेसी के लिए, इनेबलिंग एक्सेस टू जस्टिस, तो वो हमें करते रहना है। थैंक यू।
मेरी उम्मीद है कि 40 साल में से यहाँ तो सभी लोग सत्ता में होंगे तो सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा। सर जी।
So I'm Vikram Srivastav. I was with Mark for almost like 2 years, and I think the idea of Vasudha was so far from the time that it will never lose its relevance. And if I can just point few things out of that, I think the demystification and simplification was the core on which she worked. And now I think even the courts have now started realizing that even the judgments have to be in different languages and accessible to that. So we may change the mode using the technology and all, but the fundamentals won't change. Secondly, I think the emphasis on research was so much. And in the realm of legal research, I think there's so much scope even today. The women reservation coming up, we still struggle at the panchayats. Panchayat patis are still in existence. So whatever she talked about, talking about child rights then, when even the JJ was not in place. So I think the way MARG has stood its ground for last 40 years on certain very basic methodologies and certain way of doing it, I think it will remain relevant because many people don't find it very attractive. And so MARG should not change its way of working. It may use technology or medium or something, but should not differ from what the way it was initially visualized. Thank you.
Thank you. So your message is keep the fundamentals of simplification and demystification. Make sure that because you still have relevance, and talking about which, I would say that Noor's idea of Bol Basanto update, if that is something that you are stuck, if you are determined about, I have no doubt you will get the money. I have no doubt. Sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss you? Sorry. Oh well, he's missed you now.
I'll take liberty to speak in Hindi. मार्ग की जो मैं मार्ग का जीबी मेंबर हूँ, अनंत स्थाना नाम है मेरा, और मार्ग की जो मेरी एक समझ है वो ये है कि ह्यूमन राइट्स के और डेवलपमेंट क्षेत्र में जो काम करने वाले लोग हैं उनका एक चरित्र है। अंग्रेजी बोलने वाले, सोफिस्टिकेटेड, अच्छे स्कूलों से पढ़े, बड़े घरों से आने वाले, उन लोगों का फील्ड माना जाता है। मार्ग का जो मेरा अनुभव है, मार्ग एक अलग तरह के लोगों को स्पेस देता है, चाहे वो इंटर्न्स हों, चाहे वो काम करने वाले लोग हों, चाहे वो कलीग्स हों। ये हमको लगता है मार्ग का एक बड़ा यूनिक कैरेक्टर है जो सस्टेन होना चाहिए, क्योंकि वहीं से असल में संघर्ष करने वाले लोग निकलते हैं, राइट? सो दैट कैरेक्टर शुड बी मेंटेन्ड।
आनंद जी ने अभी ही हमें मदद किया है to make a really difficult research on juvenile justice more readable and easier, and you will be happy to know that it presently is being translated. So
yeah, I am Kiran Singh, and I have been working with MARG, still working since '94 till date, and with most of here who are present, I have worked with them. I am seconding what Asthana is saying. MARG ने असल में सभी को बढ़ावा दिया. I am here standing with Mallika. I think Nikhil is there. I have seen them working in jungles of Korba for months and months without coming back home. So this credit also goes to Margis who have given this Marg a base, a look. And this Mridula is here, and I don't know how many of them, where we went to Naxal areas and we wanted to say what we want to. And we were never scared of what the word is saying about. And this should continue what we stand for. We should not look back. We should move further. दुनिया तो कहेगी ही कहेगी. मार्ग का काम है आगे बढ़ना.
Thank you, Kiran.
Thank you. On that note, I think we've been Vasudha gave us a lot of space to debate and fight to go on padyatras. So our fundamental thing was that we had to fight with each other to say, I will go, I will go. Finally, Vasudha, you say, all of you go and get out of this office. So that was the beginning of action research that we did on people getting displaced by dams. Sardar Sarovar was the beginning. And from then on, we moved on. I think MARG should also now take a look at that space in a greater detail. Nobody's talking about these issues, but displacement is happening left, right, and center. By highways, by railways, and the urbanization is increasing. So everybody's moving to urban space, and it's becoming even more difficult now. I'm working with an organization called World Bank, and we do finance governments for all types of displacement, right? Be it power sector, anything. And I'm seeing that data that MARG used to collect while going on padyatras or even research and all, that really helped and shaped the debate. And no dam movement was also, I think, important for people to recognize that space, that people didn't have a voice on rehabilitation and stuff like that. I recall, Maya, we had this discussion in MARG. Should we continue with all that, or should we just stick to legal literacy? There was a lot of conversation, that took place. But I think over the time, MARG has focused a lot on legal awareness, which is very critical. For example, Abha is helping us a lot on training contractors on labor laws so that they follow the labor laws, etc. And I think that space, there's nobody there now. Whoever's doing it, carrying out all these researches, I mean, the quality is so poor that, you wonder, where's MARG? MARG had a space in this area. So I would highly recommend that we go back to the drawing board and look at this cell also, along with your legal literacy programs. Thank you. Let me stop there.
Thank you.
हेलो, मेरा नाम निखिल वर्मा है और मैं मार्ग में ऑलमोस्ट 10 वर्ष तक काम किया. फ्रॉम 1993, अब 2000 याद आता है, 1993 to 2002 और 3 तक काम किया. मुझे लगता है कि ये ऐसा पल है 40 वर्ष का, इसमें बहुत सारी भावनाएं भी हैं, भावनात्मक भी इंसान होता है, बहुत सारी चीज़ों को बनते बिगड़ते भी इंसान देखता है. और इसी अनुभव के साथ अभी मैं ऑन दिस जंक्चर मैं अपने आप को पा रहा हूँ. मुझे लगता है कि थोड़ा सेलिब्रेटरी नोट होना चाहिए 40 साल के लिए. इसलिए आई रिक्वेस्ट एवरी वन ऑफ यू टू गिव ए बिग क्लैप टू द मार्ग. ऐसे नहीं, इतने हल्के से नहीं, जोर से ताली बजाते हम लोग. मुझे लगता है कि आप जो मुझे यहाँ खड़ा देख रहे हैं, और मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा एक बार, जो पुराने साथी एक बार खड़े हो जाए, एक बार खड़े हो जाए, एक बार प्लीज़. थैंक यू, थैंक यू, थैंक यू. मैं आई एम टेकिंग लिबर्टी टू स्पीक ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ एवरीवन. हम सब लोगों को मार्ग ने बनाया है, वसुधा जी के लीडरशिप ने बनाया है. गलत कह रहा हूँ मैं? आवाज़ आनी चाहिए. गलत कह रहा हूँ? ऐसे इतने हल्की आवाज़ नहीं, आवाज़ जोरदार होनी चाहिए. गलत कह रहा हूँ मैं? आप लोग भी बोल सकते हैं जो नहीं थे उस बात. तो मुझे लगता है कि मार्ग 1985 में जब उसका निर्माण हुआ तो हम लोग उस वक्त तो उसका हिस्सा नहीं थे, लेकिन आभा जी और तमाम सारे लोग उसी वक्त मार्ग में आए थे. और जिस प्रकार से द इंटायर डिस्कोर्स हम लोगों ने, जब इन्फेंसी था मार्ग का, तो हम लोगों ने मार्ग ज्वाइन किया. और उस समय जो हम लोगों ने अनुभव किया कि हम लोग क्या कहते थे, सेल, जेल वाला अनुभव होता था उसको सुनने में. तो ये 3 जो सेल था, लीगल लिटरेसी, डिस्प्लेसमेंट एंड रिहैबिलिटेशन और तीसरा विमेन एंड चाइल्ड। मुझे लगता है कि बहुत ही कंटेम्प्रेरी इशूज़ था उस वक्त के लिए। अगर इसको देखें हम लोग, अनवाइंड करें, तो मुझे लगता है कि लीगल लिटरेसी में, जैसे यू राइटली सेड मैम, कि लीगल लिटरेसी में एम्पावरमेंट, पूरी मंशा उसकी एम्पावरमेंट थी। लोगों को जागरूक करना, सशक्त करना, उनको उनके अधिकार को बताना, ताकि वो जो भी स्टेक होल्डर है उनसे इंगेज करके अपने अधिकार को ले सके। ये पूरे प्रोसेस में रहा। मुझे लगता है डिस्प्लेसमेंट रिहेबिलिटेशन का जो मुझे अगर इफ आई रिकॉल इट करेक्टली, और जो उस वक्त के वसुधा के डिस्कशन को हम लोग सुनते थे, बहुत यूथ थे, हम भी ऐसे खड़े रहे हैं, आप लोग जैसे खड़े हैं। और मैं आपको एक चीज़ एश्योर कर सकता हूँ अपने अनुभव से और तमाम सारे लोगों के अनुभव से, कि आप जिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में हैं और जिस उम्र में आप हैं, मुझे लगता है यू विल एग्री विथ मी कि आप सब लोगों को बहुत सारी ऐसी ऐसी चीज़ें सीखने को, नेहा गलत बोल रहा हूँ, तो ऐसी ऐसी चीज़ों को सीखने का मौका मिलेगा जो आपके पूरे करियर में काम आएगा। मुझे लगता है कि जो डिस्प्लेसमेंट रिहेबिलिटेशन का पॉलिसी एडवोकेसी था, एक जो सशक्त माध्यम था, मुझे वो भी दिन याद है जब पूरी दुनिया बोलती थी कि नो डिस्प्लेसमेंट, और हमने बोलना शुरू किया रिसेटलमेंट एंड रिहेबिलिटेशन। मिदुला जी ने किताब भी लिखा, याद है मैम? ठीक है, आज भी है। लेकिन मुझे लग रहा है कि इस पर्टिकुलर काम के साथ लीगल लिटरेसी बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है। हम लोग तो बहुत जगह पे काम करते हैं, मार्ग के बारे में सुनते हैं, उनके जो ट्रेनिंग में आए हुए लोग हैं ऐसे कम्युनिटी से इंगेज करते हैं, तो मुझे लगता है बहुत ज़बरदस्त इम्पैक्ट है। लेकिन एक चीज़ स्कोप मुझे यहाँ भी लगता है कि हम लोग बेसिक लॉ बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है, करना चाहिए, कर रहे हैं और वर्षों से कर रहे हैं। लेकिन मुझे लग रहा है जो कंटेम्प्रेरी लॉ है, कुछ जैसे राइट टू फूड है, मान लीजिए, जिसे सीधे रूप से लोग जुड़ते हैं, तो ऐसे मुद्दों को हम क्यों नहीं मुझे नहीं पता इस बीच में जोड़ा गया या नहीं जोड़ा गया। तो ऐसे मुद्दे जो कि लोगों को सीधे रूप से, जो भी पॉलिसी है, वसुधा से एक चीज़ सीखा था हमने, हम लोग पॉलिसी कहते थे, तो उन्होंने कहा था पॉलिसी डजेंट हैव टीथ, लॉ हैज़ टीथ, है ना। तो ये जो ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन है जो पॉलिसी इन्फ्लुएंसिंग का था, और हम लोगों ने बनते बिगड़ते देखा, आर पे इतने सारे काम हो गए, लेकिन मुझे लग रहा है कि हम लोगों का एक गोल्डन अपॉर्चुनिटी, जो पूरा, जैसे मृदुला जी का, कितने डिस्प्लेसमेंट अभी हो रहे हैं, और मुझे लग रहा है एक बहुत सशक्त, मजबूत, कारगर वॉच डॉग की भूमिका में जो मार्ग था, वो शायद हम लोग उस अपॉर्चुनिटी को मिस कर गए। मुझे लगता है कि एम्पावरमेंट बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है, होना चाहिए, निरंतरता के साथ होना चाहिए, लेकिन पॉलिसी कैसे बने, लॉ कैसा बने, इसके बारे में अगर हम लोग काम नहीं करेंगे विद द काइंड ऑफ एक्सपीरियंस मार्ग है, तो मुझे लगता है कि हम लोग अपने फुल पोटेंशियल को वी आर नॉट यूजिंग। मुझे जी, तो एक एरिया ये लगता है मैम, और बहुत सारी चीज़ें, विमेन एंड चाइल्ड भी जो है, जिस तरह के काम हुए उसमें, तो लीगल लिटरेसी हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं। मैं अपनी तरफ से बहुत सारी शुभकामनाएं दूंगा, बहुत अच्छा करें, और इतने सारे एडवोकेट हैं आपके, जो पुराने लोग हैं, अच्छी शुरुआत हुई है, एक मजबूत शुरुआत हुई है, हम सब लोग मिल रहे हैं, इसको कैसे आगे सस्टेन करें, हम लोग किस तरीके से, जैसे अमिताभ ने कहा, तमाम सारे लोगों ने कहा, इको किया, इसको हम कैसे कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकते हैं इन ग्रोथ ऑफ मार्ग, इन टर्म ऑफ नॉट जस्ट फंडिंग, बट उसके थीमेटिक एरियाज़ क्या हों, उसमें और क्या जोड़ सकते हैं, ये तमाम सारी चीज़ों के बारे में हम लोग बात करें, तो मुझे लगता है कि मैं खुद को सौभाग्यशाली मानूंगा। थैंक यू सो मच।
Thank you. I must now draw the session to a close in a hard stop, because we have both our eminent speakers or discussants here. Dr. Upendra Baxi is waiting at his home, and Justice Muralidhar, may I invite you to please come up. And I leave you to each other's mercies. And you must look him in the eye.
No, I'm
and
not.
attack him.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us here today.
don't need any introduction.
Maybe after our conversation. I don't want to delay our conversation. So I'm going to ask Professor Baxi to start because he's been at the very inception of this whole idea of MARG. And it'll be wonderful to hear from him because he was very closely associated with Dr. Dagambar's work and her progress. So Prof, may I first request you to say, tell us, share your memories of MARG, and then we'll have the conversation. Prof, I think you'll have to unmute. You have to unmute. You have to assert your freedom of speech, Prof. No, you're still muted. You're still muted. No. There is still an unreasonable restriction on your freedom of speech. No, he has to unmute himself. No? There has to be a button, the unmute button, which you will have to press. Unmute कीजिएगा. I think we can hear you, Prof, now.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I have difficulty in finding the unmute button.
Yes.
Which is surprising in the present days. It is very nice to be with you, Chief, and all the friends from MARG. Vasudha is a legendary presence for me even now. Chitra insists with the poignant news that she is no more, but I think she's forever with me and many of her friends. When Vasudha was thinking about starting this group, Multiple Action Research Group, it's a very nice name, I distinctly remember I suggested instead of MARG, she should have the word Raha. There's a very nice song by someone which is called Nahin Hin Ko Raha Dikhao Prabhu. Pal pal thokar khaun main. I stumble every time upon the challenges of life, and therefore please show me the way. It's the same thing as MARG, and I'm very delighted to be with you all. I think in terms of the work of MARG, first of all, it is really outstanding in every possible way. The fact that the institution has survived, not merely done the work. The work is very important, I'll come to it in a minute. The fact that it has survived for 40 years is itself a milestone and an achievement. I congratulate you all for your hard work, because this is impossible, inconceivable without the collective work of the team of MARG and all the MARG supporters. So I congratulate you all on this occasion. Coming to Vasudha and MARG, I've been very closely associated, so have been many of us here. And I recall today Harsheti and Sudarshan of the Ford Foundation. We're very close friends, we're very well-knit friends when MARG started. And Vasudha would have been, wherever she is in her spirit, she would be very happy to be with you all astrally, us all, astrally on this occasion. Because she had a very robust common sense. She worked on the common sense of the law. Law is very often displays, forgive me, Chief, for saying this, very uncommon common sense. When he tries to display some common sense. Vasudha displayed an enormously on the ground, on the feet, common sense. He was not an astroturf activist. He was not a person of high theory. He could be one, but when she wore her Oxford cap, she was at Oxford for a long time, and I was in Sydney in Australia for a long time. And she always called me a man from the punitive colony. So she was a British, I called her a Brit, and she said I was from penal colony. So I speak from that colony at the time being. But she had a sense of theory, but we were very glad that she come across an American pragmatist philosopher called William James. And William James once said, and it's very memorable for Margaret as well, nothing is more practical than a good theory. There is not too much difference between theory and practice in a mind, but in her mind, it was very important to have a no-nonsense and early on the ground, on the feet firmly planted, looking at the sky, but feet firmly planted on the ground. And you all know her work in Dhulia, her work in many other places. She did not go for, what shall I say, what our beloved Prime Minister once said in his first term. He invented a word called five-star activism. And I wrote an outlook that I've yet to meet. For 30 years I've been in the activist world. I've yet to meet a five-star activist. After that, we heard nothing more. But she was not a five-star activist. She was on the ground. And she did not want to change. She wanted to change, but she knew that we cannot change the state rationality. It's enormously slow, infinitely slow work. What is more important is to empower and awaken people. And आपकी जो movement है हमारा कानून वो उसने शुरू की थी. She did enormous work in not merely legal literacy, but legal literacy as the literacy of the learner, learned and the learners. Legal literacy in two senses. She in fact held some seminars for workers of MARG and other people on training the trainers. It's very important to her, I think. So she went very much into the aspect of no-nonsense, robust common sense, on-the-ground work. And she knew that success doesn't come easy and very often eludes us. But empowerment of people and struggle for a more ethical state, a more accountable state, society. That's what we call rule of law. That struggle was very important. And legal literacy, she pursued in two ways. First, legal literacy for the so-called constitutional underclasses, people who were hurt by the way Constitution operated, if I may say so. People were hurt by the fact that no notice was taken of their sufferings by law and lawsayers. And she worked legal literacy of the have-nots, very important for her. And it became very important for Marg as a whole later on. But she also worked morely on legal literacy of the literate, which is very important in that sense. So she, as I mentioned, she worked courses, a program of training the trainers. It's a very good idea because this is, I used to often say to her that this was Baxi morons, like oxymoron, you understand? Baxi moron, Baxi what? It's that illiteracy, I often say when I'm angry with when I used to teach with my colleagues in my class, I said illiteracy of the literate is more harmful than the illiteracy of the so-called illiterate. And third of the last century, a man called Hogarth wrote a very nice book on the uses of illiteracy. I reminded Vasudha very often, the people whom we call illiterate, and she readily agreed. Because she knew it. From Dromka, from other places, from Nabda, from other places, she knew that it is more harmful, more pernicious to have the literate being illiterate in the sufferings of the people. So she had a great feel for that. And I think she didn't stop here, because after one person I'm like Lord Krishna goes on. But she just simply say this one, then we can have a conversation. She believed in she did not read that book, but I think later on I recommended very strongly to her. It was by a Ghanaian thinker called Claude Aki, A-K-E. And he wrote a book whose title was Disempowerment of Democracy. Before we heard of this idea about democratic blackfelting and so on, this was very common, erosion of the rule of law values and all that, globally. She believed that the struggle of the disempowered to be empowered, was very important. But it is important provided we did not expect the state rationality to be reformed by one leap. It takes a lot of time to change institutional normative thinking of the managers of the institution of the state. And she worked very steadily. I'm going on and on. I'll stop here. Please.
So, Prof, thank you. Thank you. So we go down straight to the theme of our conversation, which is accessing justice outside the courtrooms. One of the first things that impressed me about MARG, and I'm talking about when I came to the city in 1987, was to actually see those manuals that had been carefully constructed, explaining law in very simple terms, particularly the land acquisition law. I remember very starkly that even as a lawyer, I found that explanation of the law much clearer than reading the bare text of the act. So one of the first themes I want to pick up in the context of accessing justice is the language of the law, because that is something I think Vasudha was deeply concerned with and forms a central core of MARG's work, which is legal literacy. We always have an informed critique of the law as being written in a language which is alien to the language of the people. And we are struggling to translate the law into the language of the people. So I would ask you to share with us your thoughts on the language of the law. And I've always wondered, when we sit down to write a law in this country, we first think of it in English, and we write it in English, and then translate it into the vernacular. So what if we were to think of the law in a non-English language and wrote it in a non-English language, and then translated that into English? Would that law read very differently? So this is just one provocation. So I know you will pick up what needs to be.
I think there are a lot of controversy 75 plus years of the language of the law. If you mean by law here, um, judicial law saying, judicial interpretation, English is the language, as we all know, that is used both in courts as well as by legislature. All legislatures are in two languages at least, and they are occasionally in the regional language as well. So interpretation, I worked for a long time as honorary director of Indian Law Institute, and above me was the second and third Prof. And there was the Official Languages Commission. And it's still working, I think.
Yes.
It works on production of literature in regional language, of law and regional languages. Now, I tried to read the Hindi edition for quite some time of the Supreme Court cases, Supreme Court reporter. And believe you me, it was proved very difficult.
Yes.
Because it was very chaste Hindi. It is very difficult. So one thing is, what Vasudha and Marg did was to translate laws, some of the laws, into Marathi and Hindi and other languages. And that, I think, multilingual, where people can only own the law. Who owns the law today? Not the people of India. Not we, the people of India. The law is owned by the legislature, lawmakers, and interpreters, those who interpret the law. So it is necessary to have a translation. There is the Official Language Commission. There are plenty of translations. There are state languages. But English is the rich language of law, and it continues. And it causes enormous delays. In Ayodhya case, for example, it took 3.5 years for the documents to be translated into English. Very often people don't realize, when talk about language, that delay is often caused by the linguistic incompetence of the judges. Forgive me.
No, not at all.
I'm not afraid to past justice. I'm bringing of the future. I'm thinking, I knew the future. Now I think it nowadays. And you were the future in the early days, so back to future. Interesting movement, back to future. So it is important that I had suggested a long time ago that there should be an executive summary of all the judgments, which is not more than 2 pages, and in all the constitutionally recognized languages. High Court, the same principle applied. I worked on this, several justices, and begged them to, they didn't cash on the summary, after all. A case of about 2,000 pages. The people don't read it. I've read it 22 times, and yet I'm saying. That's a different matter. Perhaps I'm not saying for that reason. But it is important to read judgments, and you can't read judgments if the language itself is a barrier. So I think the law should be, whether it is legislation, lay down punitive obligations on citizens, or whether the interpretation of the law, 75 years down the road, MARG should launch a movement again, that it should not be a matter only for NGOs, but it should be co-responsibility of the state to give this 1-page, 2-page executive summary which is as binding as the law itself. It's very difficult. It's not difficult in principle. It's very difficult in practice. I don't know why. So I think language is not a barrier. Justice Krishna Iyer's language is not a barrier. He taught in Malayali, and he wrote Malayali English. Right? I mean, people who regional justice system, ODI English, Gonglish, I'm a master of English. People try English is not an alien language, it's Indianized. I often said to my class, very often I used to teach, that 50, 60 years is long enough time to take a revenge of colonialism on the language. Now we must stop using the word definite article the before parliament. Never done. The councils people write. Councils, never plural. It's a singular in English. So we try to chase English, we should try. But at that part, I think you're right, absolutely right. There's a theory of linguistic injustice. By the language, you disempower people, you disempower democracy, you disempower rights, you disempower interpretation. A lot of progress has been made, I must say, in terms of meeting this problem, and some of the problems are really solved. But I think the delay factor remains. We need more linked languages, or not only English, and there is a big language controversy, the adoption of the Constitution till now. And I think we need to have at least a translation in constitutional schedule recognized language 21, 24 of all the 1.5 pages judgments, laws that lay down obligation that should be binding in interpretation of the court. That's the one way, a simple way of solving this problem. And perhaps we can work on that.
So, Prof, I was just wondering, another connected theme with that. I was struck by your comment that Dr. Dagamvar was concerned not just about literacy for the underprivileged classes and have-nots, but literacy of the literate. Now, I just wanted to provoke another discussion. When we talk of legal literacy, we invariably talk of awareness of formal legal systems laws, which is the procedures and substantive laws. We rarely talk about literacy about the non-formal legal systems, which also people are closely connected with. And very often among the rural populations, the first point of contact is with the non-formal system and not so much with the formal legal system, unless in the criminal law context. So I think you've written extensively about this. You've also reviewed an excellent work by a legal scholar that you shared with me only yesterday. How do non-formal legal systems work? How are they so robust? Because after 75 years of the Constitution, those non-formal systems are far from getting dismantled. They continue to be relevant. I mean, we may agree or disagree with the norms that they work by, but they seem to be continuing to be relevant to the Indian populations across the country. So how does a work of MARG in legal literacy, how is it relevant in the context of both the formal and non-formal systems?
Yes, I think I know I received a booklet on the current agenda of the MARG and last 50 years. So very well stated, everything there. But we miss this dimension as to the future, what we'll do. But not alone MARG. All of us must be careful. When you talk of non-state legal system, they have no legal literacy problem. They make the law, they interpret the law, they apply the law. It's quite parallel to state law. And it should have, it's a vitality and a testimonial to a multiculturalism. That there is state law and there is non-state law. And non-state law serves the needs of people to more or less an equal extent or even more sometimes than the state law. The British realized it long time ago. They wrote a Qazi Act, and they gave jurisdiction to the Imam. to interpret the Muslim law, where the Anglo-Muslim law started, and Pandit in Hindu law, and so on. So there is a recognition, howsoever grudging, but expanding recognition that non-state legal systems are here to stay. They preceded the state legal system, they coexisted with the state law, and they transcend the state law. In fact, I studied long before the justices of the Supreme Court knew about it. There was a Lok Adalat in South Gujarat in Rangpur, which I studied with Dr. L.M. Singhvi for about 5 years. And there the Pancha, which was elected by the assembly of people from amongst the assembly, solved a dispute and did a karar agreement on which they put their thumb impression or sign it, whatever they did. And it was binding. Similarly, you'll find, I've just reviewed a book by Kokal.
Kalindi.
Said,
Kalindi.
Yeah, it said, it's about, she was an anthropologist, she was found the field and she came running to me, not running to me, but quickly emailed me, because they were told by some young people that we are all judges here. Why are you looking for judges? I don't want individuals, we all judge dispute. So I titled my review of a community of lawyers, judges. Everybody is a judge. Now there is a theistic and there is an atheistic non-state legal system. Theistic is where you believe in God or supernatural being. And very often in Himachal Pradesh, many parts of India, you have Kanagi in right there in Chennai. Very often you leave a note.
Correct.
To be read by the Supreme Being or the next in chief or whatever.
Prof, this risk of just interruption, just for a lighter moment. There is a temple in Tamil Nadu where the deity is supposed to be very propitious for resolving court disputes. So the deity is called, in a loose Tamil translation, the one who ends all disputes. That's the name of the deity. Good. And people go and keep their court bundles before the deity. The priest will take the bundle and keep it at the feet of the deity and put a few flowers on it and give it back to the person, hoping that he will win his case. So that's just one of those strange things that happen in our communities.
Very important this is the theistic non-state legal systems exist in abundance. And there the assembly is divine or the lawmaking is process is divine, but it is a people's faith that moves it. There's in Uttarakhand there is a place where there's somebody called Golu. Golu is a local god. And we have big chists where dispute both sides live with chist buying. And thereafter it was all settled. They stopped quarreling. So there is a theistic and there is a theistic where they use the uncultured, what you call, it should be familiar to lawyers because they call something called ADR.
That's right.
Alternate dispute resolution.
Correct.
What is ADR? And that is simply putting your trust into arbitrators or some mediators to sovereign judges to solve the...
Or the local dada.
Local dada? Well, I don't know. But arbitration and so on, arbitration without limitation. Arbitration, limitation arbitration one subject. I always used to have fun with it. So arbitration is without limitation. Anyway, that part, sorry, I'm digressing. The point is simple. The non-state legal system very often thrives on the inefficiency and pathology of the state legal system. I was in Rangpur, where Rashtraman, where the Gandhian, three Gandhians, Mirzapur, Rangpur, and Tripura were 3 people, Gandhian, Neo-Gandhian, who ran Lok Adalat, People's Court. And the whole function, with Mahatma Ji said to them that you don't do social reform, it's a very complicated matter. The state comes in, and new state will come in. You just do what they said in Gujarati, Chagro Bhango, break the quarrel, solve the conflict. So they came in, they used the state legal system. They said it is not in our interest. That they used a very interesting summons, Murli. They said it is not in the interest of the have-nots to go to Kachari. It is better to meet together and settle dispute. It's simple. And then they elected the panchas, the Karakat and all that. And nobody disagreed. And plenty of participation by the local people, including high participation by women, was available, and young people. So this, I don't want to go into detail of that, but I think the local Adalat thrive on the alternatives to ADR, non-state legal dispute settlement, has a counter-hegemonic relation with the state institutions, that's courts and lawyers. And they were complementary relations, symbiotic relations. They also do the job which courts don't rarely do or do very late in time. So this is very important to me. And India is a fantastic laboratory of non-state legal dispute settlement. Vasudha herself, I think, settled many disputes, although she didn't mention it very loudly, in Rumka and other places, among people. Because they go to a person or a group of persons who are just and fair, who are known to be scrupulous. There's nothing in for them. Nothing in for them. Not even the idea of social service, which is highly professionalized. So that's important. And I'm very glad that a lot of, much before ADR was discovered, we had it in Naya Panchayats and all the villages and all that.
Pani Panchayats, Rajendra Singh's work in...
Yes, Pani Panchayats is there. There are lots of panchayats. Another Panchayat was there, yes, it started with Pani Panchayat. Many others.
But Prof, we also have problematic panchayats like Khap Panchayats and Kata Panchayats.
Oh yes, you have 3 types of relations. One is symbiotic, where they coexist and serve each other. The second is hegemonic, relationship struggle between the state and the non-state. And the third is customary caste panchayat, Kuladari, which enforce the caste law. And caste law is all the relation between touchables and untouchables, basically. And that, I think, is they can pursue many undemocratic aims.
Correct.
To behave as if constitution has also values which exist. And this kind of extra constitutional institutions, which replace rights by wisdom or charity of the decision makers, is not very good, very excellent way of proceeding.
Prof, one of the questions that were flagged today, and I think which we do need to reflect on, I mean the two of us of course, apart from the rest of the audience, is what is the relevance of an organization like MARG in today's times? And with your permission, I'm just going to say a few words on that, because I think to me the answer is very obvious that we do need civil society organizations that are closely connected with the people, who are prepared to listen to the people and understand how the people view the system which they have to negotiate. But there is one very important contribution I think organizations like MARG have made, is to strengthen what I call are the bottom-up processes in lawmaking. So among the recent examples of bottom-up processes, one is the RTI Act. It came entirely through a bottom-up process. It was through actual mobilization of public opinion, campaigns on the ground that ultimately saw in the making of the RTI Act. Second is the Right to Food Act. This is something that has happened post Vasudha's times. So I think she would have been thrilled to know that today we have a Food Security Act, we have a Manrega Act, we have a Forest Rights Act, and then we have one of MARG's key areas of work, which is displacement. We have the 2013 amendments to the Land Acquisition Act, which seek to answer many of the concerns expressed by the displaced populations who were lent a voice by MARG's work, and other, of course, organizations like Narmada Bachao Andolan and others. But so today we do have, in a recent past, I'm talking of pre-2014, we have in this country's legal history at least 5 examples of bottom-up processes of the law. So I would think that the kind of work that MARG has done in the past and should do in the future will strengthen these bottom-up processes. And I wonder whether you would, I'm sure you will not disagree, but whether you would want to share your thoughts on that.
Well, Vasudha would have said bottom-up has to be really bottom-up. It very much matters whose bottoms are up and whose are down. This kind of thing. Therefore, it's very important. The state can never, ever aspire to do what NGOs do. That's the bottom up. That is really, it's a rights and human rights education, in fact, in modern contemporary terms. It is people learn to make demands on state institutions, on legislature, on executive, on judiciary. These are 3 mega institutions. There are hundreds of other local institutions, regional institutions, but it's a mega institution. And therefore, this process of demand articulation and formation, I thought, was inspired by the Constitution and Part 4. I just had the occasion to review a book, which is now published by Oxford University Press, which is very important, by Ornest Sani and Rohit Day.
Correct.
On
the constitution making process, yes.
Yeah, how the constitution was made by people's suggestion.
Correct.
So constitution is with the people is not fanciful, it's not fiction. They wrote and they got replies, and some of their suggestions were accepted. In fact, a disabled scholar recently wrote to me, said he was very grateful that I pointed out the book to him, because in that book there is half a chapter on that, how disability associations, various associations represented to the Constituent Assembly. At Labor Day, the teachers did, everybody did. So Constitution was not made up above. Constitution making was a bottom-up process. And this would have gladdened Vasudha's heart, because this is what all our lives is so. That reform of state rationality, constitutional law or judgment, is and should be the work of people. I was very often asked in Rangpur and Lokadala, the question is that, Bhaiji, ye kon Udalyat, it's an ultimate insult. Udalyat in Gujarati means the white man. I said, why do you call him Udalyat? I mean, as bound can be. And they said, no, Bhaiji, Udalyat means a white person is anyone who comes from the city.
Oh, I see.
Whether it's Saukar, whether it is revenue officer, or Talati, or whether it is bosses of Bangalore. So, we should stop being Udalyat to our own people. I remember very strongly a man who came to me, Kaluram Dode, unannounced. He said, I'll stay for one day. I'll have bath first of all, then I'll have khana, and I'll talk with you. I said, but who are you? After you come, he said, I come from Bhumisena and Palghar or somewhere. And all our mandals, Tarun Mandal and Barbara Mandal and Mahila Mandal, and everybody agreed to disregard your Berkeley degree. But we have come to a conclusion that you should, if you can help us, you should help us, but not, you should not be ever on the top, but on the tip. When we want you, we'll ask you. So I said, all right, I'm getting up. So I said, what is your question? What is your brief for me? What a lawyer would say. He said, we have only one question. We are not revolutionaries. A democratic organization. And we want this same law which oppresses us to oppress the oppressors. How do we do it? But truthfully and responsibly, not by lying. And it was an eye-opener for me. I just come from Sydney to Delhi University, professor of law, and I was thinking a great deal about myself, but they completely transformed me. So this is important, self-transformation of the persons working for us is the first thing.
Right, right. Prof, yeah, I'm starkly reminded after hearing you say, I watched a small clip on the protests in Niyamagiri in Orissa.
Oh, yes.
Against the Vedanta's bauxite mine. So one of the villagers, she actually asks in camera that we don't demand anything of the state. And we are prepared to live with nature. So why don't you let us be? Why don't you leave us alone?
Yes.
This is her constant questioning. So now Niyamagiri, I'm sure people in the audience will know, had a relatively happy ending. The law itself, that is the Tribal Rights Act, Forest Rights Act, envisages extensive consultation with the affected communities. So the 14 gram mandals, at every hearing, public hearing they held, they all unanimously voted against the project.
Yeah.
This could happen only because the Supreme Court said this procedure is mandatory, we will not allow it to be diluted, and acted on that decision to say the project has to stop. Now, I think the work of organizations like MARG will be to see how you can strengthen those processes. Because in other places in India, these processes are getting subverted. Either the hearings are minuted in a way which does not record the dissent of people. So how do we actually, first of all, spread awareness on what the Forest Rights Act does and why this judgment, and this judgment needs to be talked about extensively. It's a 2013 judgment, but it lays down the whole framework by referring to international conventions. So we need to have a separate, I think the new MARG will have to have different areas of focus. One definitely should be the Forest Rights Act, because these are the most unseen of the populations, and they are all in resource-rich areas, and they are not always aware of the legal processes which actually are supposed to empower them and make them participate in the decision-making process. So they're very often left out of it. So I think having extensive discussions with those communities and to see how it can be, how we can strengthen their hands in enforcing these processes would be one area which MARG can definitely take up for its focus. Because many of the projects today are located in all these resource-rich, either Schedule 5 or Schedule 6 areas. So that is one, I think, task that's cut out for us, for MARG definitely. I don't know whether, Prof, you want to add something to that.
I only want to say you are absolutely right at Niyamagiri, and I think we should take hope and courage from it. But Vasudha and two other colleagues from MARG wrote a book to which I gave a preface on Korba. And modern India is full of Korbas. Korba is Orissa and development, she opposes the, in my words, the development reason. I think the development reason has to be taken seriously, but also with a great pinch of salt, both, because it also results in displacement and deforestation. So these are problems of people, large dams, large airports, the development of India has always taken care of the middle classes and upper middle classes. Whereas the concern of MARG has always been, which is dispossessed, a practical concern. I mean, unlike they did not differ too much, but they differed on one perspective, and it needs to be remembered. Whereas my friend Metapatka was a completely anti-dam person, basically, in theory. Vasudha said, we can't stop dams. But how about rehabilitation? So she worked all the time at a parallel path. She said, we can't be anti-dam. We can't be anti-development. So there's ambiguity of some kind in that discussion. She was not opposing Bela, but she was different. She was concentrating on what the people need and want at the time being. We can't stop the item. So the question before MARG now, in the coming 20, 30 years, is to balance. There is a friend of mine, Sakar Goan Yogi, no more, assassinated in Bhilai steel plant. Sakar Goan Yogi wrote a book in Hindi, which is worth reading. I always urge on people to read it, and MARG should take courage and lessons from them. His title was Vikas Ya Vinas. Every Vikas involves V1, involves V2. There cannot be development without destruction. So then what's the problem? The problem is just destruction, but there should be just destruction. That's what Part 4 of the Constitution is all about. And now that is Part 4A duties, fundamentally one paragraph in the Indian Constitution, added by 42nd Amendment. MARG should concentrate on fundamental duties of citizens. There are 10 duties and 11th have been added, which is environmental. It should espouse those duties, and it should, if it has not done so, I'm being ignorant, if it has not done so, it should do it, because duties, the education into duties is a way of empowering people. Through constitutional languages means. And that's very important. If Vasudha had been around, she would have immediately grasped the message of the duties, because the duties constitute not only about rights, they're about responsibilities. For example, there's a duty, I'll only take 1 minute, a duty in Part 4, one paragraph only in the Constitution, which says there's a duty to develop scientific temper, spirit of critical inquiry, social reform, and excellence in all walks of life, say individual or collective. Now I say, what is the other? I always say, don't attach importance only to tyranny of singular. What is the other of excellence? Other of excellence, according to me, is mediocrity. So you have a duty not to be mediocre. Which constitution in the world says this? Apart from Indian, which is 75 plus constitution. So mediocrity should be shunned in all walks of life, singular or collective. That's the duty of a citizen. So how far the fundamental duties can be used as a means of struggle and empowerment of people is a quest that MARG should seriously undertake if it has not undertaken so far.
Thank you, Prof. I think with that, I think our conversation should make way for questions from the audience. I'm told there are people waiting to ask questions of you in particular. So if you don't mind, can we take some of those questions?
Most welcome.
Yes, please. I think there's a... person who's put up her hand there.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. I'm Kiran Jyoti. So I had 2 stints at MARG, one under Vasudha's leadership and then with Abha. So it's been beautiful feeling coming here and being part of all the deliberations, discussions. So one thing I think is actually carry on from the previous session. Yeah, very important, the Forest Rights Act you've mentioned. So all these committees at local level, at Gram Sabha level, at block level, district level, so people's presence and people's participation is also missing. And the other thing I wanted to make mention of, MARG has been, we've been talking of legal literacy to legal awareness and then enabling people for empowerment, with empowerment. So MARG had one more program, that is Women and Children program. So putting the pieces together, Sana mentioned about Panchayat, Abba said governance, Nikhil said Women and Children program, and then Vikram spoke about Panchayat Pati. So there's been like very elaborate, extensive program, I think 1995, 96, yeah. I joined it. So this program has worked extensively on women in governance as well. And you know what is relevant for MARG, I think that is also very relevant. It's been not only panchayats, it's been like empowering women at the grassroots. So empowering women with the processes at the grassroots. I had an opportunity to participate.
Would you have a question or it's just a comment?
Yeah. So the question is actually a suggestion, sir. So the concern and the humble submission is MARG also needs to focus on strengthening women in grassroots governance. We had conducted a study way back in 1997. My colleagues Neha is here, Preeti is here, Bharti Ali was there. So you know that was after first batch of women who got elected after 73rd amendment. So there was one question in survey, how you feel after having elected, because there was lots of observations, findings regarding the lack of knowledge, the piecemeal ad hoc sources of knowledge, and then all the women with almost one voice, they said that they want to continue in this position. And then there was question, should there be reservation for women at state and central level as well? So they said, let women evolve from the grassroots. So what I'm trying to say is now around 22 states, they've made this women's reservation not 1/3, 50%. So we have around, I think, 1.4 million women in governance, but that's about numbers. So MARG has a very strong role to play. I don't know, I'm not very sure whether MARG is continuing with women. So legal literacy of women in who make their way.
Thank you so much.
So
Thank
that
you.
is my contention.
There are any questions we'd like to take? Just make it a question.
Yes.
Please.
Good evening. So I had one question, which is when you look at especially legal awareness and legal education, the larger picture of it is to get people to identify social issues and empowering them to be able to stand up to them. But to achieve that goal, I wanted to know your opinion on how important is getting the masses financially independent and reliant upon themselves in order to be able to stand up to social injustices. And basically I wanted to know your opinion on that aspect as well.
Prof, you want to take that? Prof?
Yeah, if I may say so.
Yes.
Just noting down the comments, very interesting.
Yes.
First, very short, brief report. Is the word people is a troublesome and a treacherous word, because everybody is a part of the so-called people. But when male men use it, women are hardly seen as people. When able people talk about people, they ignore disabled people altogether. The disabled people feel left out. when civilians talk about the armed forces felt left out. So there are all kinds of things that are people. And we have to make sure at least everywhere we talk and act, we take responsibility for people to make invisible and inaudible and unpresent. So that is very important. So I think the question about women's empowerment was very right. The question about financing. Well, Ila Bhatt in Ahmedabad invented microfinance programs, and the Grameen Bank of the current president of Bangladesh also did that microfinancing program. So it's possible, like Seva, and if you study Seva and Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, we find ready answers, ready-made models at least to juggle with. So it's very important because self-financing is also a form of empowerment. And how do you do that? These are very well studied in social science theory and in management theory. There's two examples, Seva and Grameen Bank.
Yes.
And in fact, these two experiments spread across the borders and traveled as far as America. So microfinancing is now, Hillary Clinton and other people took it up very strongly. So kindly do study our own movement.
Yes, and I wish to add, one is not conditional upon the other, because there are some communities that require mobilization, and you don't have to wait to make sure that they are financially independent. I'm talking of the question of sanitation workers. Okay, people who used to clean dry latrines or clean the sewers. Now you can't wait till they become, financially self-reliant for you to mobilize them into action or awaken the state to its inaction. So I think these things work in tandem. So, and like Prof is saying, there are several good examples before us of how some models can work. But it can work for some communities. For others, the strategy may have to be different.
I will only avoid the word mobilize.
Yes. Yes, please. I think one more question.
Hello, sir. My question is, in the era of globalization and inflation, what is your take regarding social justice, achieving the social justice and maintaining the capitalism as the time has been changed? It is not easy if we are talking about social justice, but the ends are different at the ground reality. So what are your comments regarding the same?
I think it's too broad a question. Prof, do you want to go first or?
After you.
Okay. I think at different points in history, there's always been a struggle for social justice. There's nothing new. There have always been challenges. And if you look around you, there are people fighting for it, irrespective of all these other forces that you talk about. There are street protests. I think even if you see the recent past, world developments around the world in the recent past, you will find people coming out on the streets and asserting. If you've seen the No Kings movement in the US, you can't say there's no struggle for social justice. If you see the protests outside the sites where the G7 leaders meet or the G20 leaders meet, how do you view that? How can you say people are not doing it? They are. They're very much out on the streets. They're voicing their concerns. So I think it's not open to us to become cynical. It's not open to us to become defeatist. And in a democracy, you are going to have these challenges. These challenges have been there in the past. They will be there in the future as well. But you must be clear in your convictions and how you impart those values, those convictions to the next generations that come. And there will be people struggling for justice at various points. They will have their good days and bad days. The villagers in Niyamagiri didn't hope to succeed, right? But they did. They didn't give up their fight. And they know that this victory of theirs may become very fragile very soon if they are not at it. So you have to keep asserting your rights. You have to keep speaking out, even at great personal risk. But that's what the world history tells us about. So I would not be so despondent at all as you sound.
I will only add that when I was at Delhi University, in the office there, Kaushik Basu organized a seminar of law and economics. Kaushik was here in Delhi at that time. And we started by putting one session with me on why there is no human right against inflation. And that's very important of the question that is just raised. Nobody in the world raises the question, but inflation can eat enormous into human lives and make all your rights meaningless. So human rights against inflation is a very important, it should be installed. And I think what Vasudha was doing in a sense was this idea of, they never talked about human rights, they talked about empowerment and struggle, but rarely talked about human rights. But I think it is time for a movement, and Mark may please consider this as some sort of citizen adjustment done by state rationality reform of inflationary measures. The inflation is a human creation, the way economy is run. And therefore, whether it is demonetization, whether it is taxes, indirect taxes, GST or whatever it is, the entire business of financial decision making is outside the ken of NGOs, outside the bounds of NGOs. Why? They have every right as citizens and every duty as citizens to ask, for example, for progressive taxation. In fact, very little on the ground talking about tax justice.
Mm.
It is just that multinationals should pay comparatively far less taxes. 15% is the limit. 15% of the annual turnover. That's the limit. Because we want investment. Right, it's a good reason. But is it right for an investment? Is it right forever? The rich should not pay more taxes to the state. So to empower the state to fulfill Part 4 duties of the Constitution, directive principles of the Constitution. Where does the state get money from? So progressive taxation is a way ahead, and I think we have to learn a lot more, but we have to, in terms of struggle of people against progressive taxation, against the right against inflation.
Thank you, Prof. I'm now going to make way for Sana to come here and do the rest of the evening's rituals. Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful conversation, and there are so many things that we can draw from. The conversation about legal literacy of literates, the conversation about non-state settlements of legal disputes, bottom-up processes, forest rights, duties, directive principles. I see there are many lessons that we can draw from this conversation and take it forward. We are running a little short on time, so we thought we'll welcome you with some token, but now we want to thank you with a small plant. I request Mr. K.K. Rai to hand over the pots to Justice Muralidhar. And we also have a plan for Mr. Upendra Baxi, Professor Upendra Baxi, that will make sure that it reaches on time.
Good.
MARG's strength has always been its people. We know all the conversations we are having this evening is about people, people from the past, people at present, people on the ground, communities. Important part of that people is the present team of MARG also. I now invite the current team of MARG on the stage, and I request all of you to give them applause because it is going to encourage us to continue this work. We thought that we'll give the certificates, but we are running very short on time. Maybe we'll do the certificate later, and the team comes on the stage. The 3 certificates can come. 3 can come. These are the people at present who, through their dedication, hard work, and sincere commitment, bring MARG vision to life in communities, in different institutions, and in many conversations. थोड़ा लाइन में सब दिखने चाहिए. Interns are part of the team. Present wale abhi. Some are out there helping people access their rights, entitlements. Some are designing training modules. Some are building capacities. Some are working on livelihood. And there are many challenges. We at times fight and shout at each other as well, but that's part of work. There are many challenges, but we continue. And I would also want to recognize 3 team members who have been with us for a very long time. Manoj ji, can I request Mr. Rai to come and give the certificates, hand over the certificates? Huh? Virender. All 3 of them have been with us for more than 15 years now. We have some certificates for the rest of the team also, but we'll share it later when in the office. We are running really short on time. I would also again like to thank Professor Baxi and Justice Muralidhar for the thought-provoking and inspiring conversation, and all of you for the ideas that you shared when we were having an open discussion. And I think with those thoughts, it is the right time to conclude the celebration today. And those thoughts and ideas will continue to guide us as we move forward.
I think you should also call the ex-MARGs.
I'm going to. Yes, that is, when we say ex-MARGis, there are a lot of people, when you ask them to stand, only few of them stood up. So we can have a group photograph here where all of us join here, including the ex-MARGis in front, of course. Can we have all of, maybe, okay, that is fine. So lastly, I would like to thank everyone on behalf of MARG for everyone who is present here and for everyone who was not able to be here but wanted to be part of this celebration, to our founders, visionaries, former directors, mentors, leaders, supporters, team members, interns, and not to mention Professor Baxi and Justice Muralidhar. A big thank you to our team and the core committee members who helped, gave the direction and guided us in organizing this program. Thanks to Sunita Narayan from IIC who helped in organizing and supported us in organizing this program. Thank you everyone for the trust and belief and the support you are extending to the organization. Thank you so much. Now we all can come here for a group photograph, please. High tea is also open. After a photograph, we'll go for the tea.